Welcome back to the Care Innovation Studio at the Care Innovation Summit. We're here with our next guest, Tom. How are you doing?
I am doing very well, having a good day.
Lovely. Do you want to tell us who you are and what you do?
So my name is Tom Ling. I'm Head of Evaluation at RAND Europe. RAND Europe is a not-for-profit research institute. We have about 200 researchers in Cambridge and offices in Brussels and The Hague. And we work primarily for government departments, the European Commission, foundations, and my own personal work. A lot of that's around innovation in health systems, in social care and in international development.
So researcher then? I think you
I'm an active jobbing researcher. People pay me for my evaluations.
Yeah, what are you researching at the moment then?
I've just finished a piece of work on body-worn cameras, for example. So they've been introduced in the ambulance service to try and understand whether body-worn cameras will reduce violence against staff. You might not be aware of it, but 90% of ambulance staff have experienced physical or verbal abuse in the last year. And so the thinking is that body-worn cameras might be a good way of trying to reduce that.
Any results? Or
that was a good question. Yeah. The answer is it depends, which is a really annoying answer for policymakers. But it depends on the quality of the training that's provided, the links with the criminal justice system, the commitment from senior management, the culture within each individual ambulance trust. So if you get all of those right, then yes, you will reduce violence. If you get them wrong, cameras will be used inappropriately. They might even escalate situations. They won't be connected to de-escalation and so forth. So, yeah, really, really interesting piece of research.
I suppose that the idea is if someone who is... something I've always found puzzling is shops and pharmacies and doctor surgeries where they put signs up that says, "We do not tolerate violent behaviour here." Like that's going to stop the person who is very, very upset about what is they're upset about, that they're going to start getting upset, read that sign and then go, "Oh, I best not misbehave now." I guess the psychological point, isn't it, about whether the seeing that camera on someone's with a little red light blinking on it changes someone's behaviour in that moment and makes them rethink what they're doing, but I suppose in most scenarios probably not.
Two things are true. That's exactly right what you're saying. The first thing is true is that a lot of the violence comes from people who have alcohol problems or addiction problems. Furthermore, it's frequently not the person receiving care, it's people surrounding them in their family or on the street or whatever. And thirdly, it does depend on, do you say to someone, "Look, you're out of order, I'm putting my camera on now"?
Yeah.
Or do you say, "Look, sir, I think this is a difficult situation for all of us. For your protection and mine, I'm just going to put the camera on here to help diffuse the situation." But so under those circumstances, the results tend to be, it's not very effective. For most people, being confronted with a camera does change your behaviour. Interestingly, even seeing yourself in a mirror behaving badly might change your behaviour. So it's kind of an interesting subject, but overall, it's something of a global, unevidence-based experiment in using cameras everywhere. It's not at all clear that they have the desired effects.
And I suppose maybe that's part of what's wrong with the way we look at information these days, is that we seem unable, especially in the sort of popular media, to not see things black and white, to actually go, "Sorry, it is a bit more complicated than just this works or doesn't work."
So that gets us on to innovation in social care, which is exactly the issue. If you've got what I call a very smooth landscape, you can develop an innovation and which works, and you can roll it out and be quite confident it's going to work in lots and lots of different places. That's a smooth landscape. Social care is classically a rugged landscape. So if you find something that works in Cleethorpes with one client group, it's probably not going to work if you just roll it out in an identical way elsewhere. You might be able to adapt it, you might be able to learn lessons, but the innovation is therefore a much more complicated process, and it's certainly not just identifying one thing that works in one place and then replicating that up and down the country. It's trying to empower staff and managers and professionals and service users, empower them to identify what works for them and build on that and share that experience so that you get bottom-up innovation. What you need from the top is a regulatory system that allows that to happen and government policies that allow that to happen. And obviously, although there is such a thing as frugal innovation, you need to have a properly and adequately resourced sector if you're going to allow that kind of freedom and innovation to take place.
Have you any thoughts on specific bits of innovation, specific things that you're looking into?
I mean, obviously new technology raises all sorts of opportunities. Using AI in training for staff, really important. Remote monitoring for clients that allows you then to identify something unusual going on in a home, and then you can reprioritize the social care rota so that you go to where you think there's more likely to be a problem. So things like that, yeah, definitely. Blood pressure monitoring. I think you can do a lot more to support staff in their development as well. Using voice recordings, or using kind of camera work as well. That would also be of potential use, but raises ethical issues as well around that.
ISIMA is a company that we work with that installs a range of motion sensors and different types of sensors around us at home, and then that's used to develop that picture over a fortnight of someone's behavioural habits. So rather than sending the carer in at 7 o'clock in the morning when they're not up till 9:30, that you can adjust the care in the correct way for that person, or understand the detail of the care that they're required. So in a lot of cases it saves local authorities a lot of money because they can deliver the right care at the right times rather than just sort of a blanket care to someone who, that they think they might need.
Your point is well made. It is that the tech fits with working practices and makes this and gives the skilled staff more opportunity to use their skills. That's what you're aiming at. It's very rare that there's a simple substitution of staff for technology, right? This is much more about how do we use the resources that we've got more effectively. And we can get into debates about are different funding mechanisms better for supporting innovation. The reality is that across health and social care systems in Europe, you're much better placed trying to make the system you've got work better, incremental improvements, than trying to jump. There's no evidence that you can easily jump from one model of care into another. So the social care sector, a lot of private sector involvement, it's not at all obvious that the solution to that is to create a single nationalised industry, for example. In fact, I would argue very strongly against that. What you have got is an opportunity to try and make that work better. And using technology, using stronger commissioning that's more intelligent, more focused on facilitating innovation, with a kind of longer term perspective. All of those things will allow you to achieve the kind of bottom-up innovation that I'm talking about, which is then supported and spread by your national innovation systems.
You mentioned sort of European countries there and European care. Is that a sector, is that an area you could talk about if I asked a question along the lines of, is there any other countries in Europe doing interesting things that we could learn from in the UK?
I mean, I'm more familiar with innovation in health systems and social care systems, but we can talk about, and they're
it's all linked together, really,
very closely related. So if you look at the Nordic countries, for example, quite simple principles. Interoperability of data, which is kind of underpins a lot of innovation systems. Secondly, being very focused on patient-centered care. Thirdly, kind of pushing regionalisation so that you've got commissioning at an appropriate geographical scale. Those are three things which create a kind of Nordic system which seems to be better at innovating than we have here. The role of national government is about universal access, fair access, and about funding things like hospitals, that those will be nationally funded. So there's a kind of role for national government, and then you think about how to push that further down. If you take a different thing like in Italy, the idea that they really wanted to develop orphan drugs for people with rare diseases who are untreated. So that became a legislative, they passed laws on that. They made a government commitment on it. They set the agenda, and they provided leadership, and the consequence of that was that Italy made great strides in that area. So something that is focused and more narrow, you can actually do with a kind of national leadership and nationally driving it. But that's rather different from what I'm describing in the Nordic countries, where I think you create an underpin system, which then allows innovation to take place. The other thing that's kind of really interesting and relevant to the social care sector in particular is the idea of frugal innovation. You and I could sit here if we had an endless budget and come up with fantastic innovations for social care. The reality is we don't have those open-ended budgets. What would frugal innovation within existing budgets look like, and how could you extend that? And have we got the capacity to look for more innovative ways of using the existing resources? We talked about technology a little while ago, but things like stretching altruism, the idea that I live in Scotland, you live in London, I've got an elderly parent I want who lives near you pop and see them. In the meantime, I go and see your elderly aunt. And we have it's a friendship. It makes life more interesting and enjoyable for them, probably for you and me as well. But we both feel that in caring for this third person, we're also helping our own relatives. You could create national systems which stretch our natural inclination to be altruistic in that kind of a way. But if you want to do that, you need to overcome some myths about people are very worried about going into other people's homes because they're worried about if something goes missing, or they're worried about that it'll be an open-ended commitment. You agree to do every Saturday morning for an hour and a half, and it becomes a kind of every day for an hour and a half. So it's things like that. But you can create a culture of mutuality and mutual support, which draws upon the fact that most of us are very happy spending a little bit of our time looking after other people.
Yeah. One thing that's a theme that's come up today with everybody is, I guess, around that frugal innovation, but really more around the idea that innovation doesn't have to be something really complicated. It can be something as simple as changing the colour of the tablecloths to make it easier for the residents to see the plate. Could be something as simple as changing the way a door opens to make that easier for that person to interact with. That it doesn't have to be a £10 million AI powered something or other to really make a difference.
Absolutely, and that's kind of what I meant when I was talking about this kind of bottom up. People see solutions at the local level, and can put them into practice. Can we find ways of spreading that and adapting it? Because you never do the same thing everywhere, but it might be. But certainly, in care homes, for example, thinking about colours, thinking about how complicated the furniture is and the images that they're looking at, and giving sections in different colours. That kind of stuff is very easy, and given that you've got to paint the place anyway, zero cost.
Yeah. So I think that's a real theme, is that innovation doesn't have to be the next big thing. It can just be that tiny step forward.
Exactly. And just on that, and I think that focusing on incremental improvements and allowing that to happen, a regulatory system that gives temporary approval with monitoring for new ideas to see how they work, really encouraging an experimentalist approach in the sector, will create an environment which is much more outward looking, much more engaged, much more self-confident about going forward than we often see today.
Yeah, it gives people the authority to take risk without fearing punishment, for making mistakes as well. Yeah. Lovely. Well, thank you very much for coming. It's been interesting chatting to you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back shortly.